Russia is one of the world's largest oil and natural gas exporters, but bans and restrictions on those exports could lead to a serious energy crisis and more pain for consumers. Emily Holland is a professor at the U.S. Naval War College. She studies the geopolitics of energy. Emily, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
You know, Europe has been a lot more dependent on Russian energy than the U.S. How have they been faring lately?
I think it's really important to note that even prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Europe was already in an energy crisis. So as far back as fall 2021, Europe was already having historically high energy prices, and some countries like Moldova had declared a state of emergency because of the severity of this energy crisis, which was caused by sort of a confluence of factors, probably most prominently, which was the sort of unexpected roaring back of demand from Asian economies from the post-pandemic. So entering the crisis, they were already in a major energy crisis. Natural gas prices, oil prices, coal prices were already sort of at historic highs. And then as the sort of worry of a Russian invasion began to loom nearer, prices started to freak out even more and get higher and higher. And so this has led Europe to really the precipice of a completely full-blown energy crisis. We have historically high prices in all three major commodities: oil, natural gas, and coal and solid fuels. And so prices are out of control, and this has led to a lot of problems. Already sort of energy-intensive industries are having to reduce their production to deal with this. The German Ministry of Finance actually just announced an emergency measure to sort of insulate some energy companies and some energy intensive industries from the prices that they're having to pay to meet this sort of out of control global energy crunch.
Well, how has the current bans and restrictions on Russian oil and gas impacted the U.S. and then the global energy market?
As most viewers know, gas prices are pretty high at the pump. So that's one of the first things that consumers see are high prices at the pump. But that's just sort of the beginning of the story. The U.S. itself is actually not that reliant on Russian oil or gas. It only uses about 3% of Russian oil for its daily consumption, so that can be replaced. But the consequence of all Western countries now sort of abandoning what is turning out to be toxic Russian energy supplies is that, of course, prices go higher. So in the U.S., we are seeing very high oil prices at the pump, and these may go higher depending on what happens with sort of global oil markets. And in Europe, this is even worse. They just announced a ban on the import of Russian coal and solid fuels, which is very significant for the Europeans. They are reliant on Russia for about 50% of their oil and for their coal and solid fuels, and that takes away about 8 billion euros of trade a year towards Russia. So far, they have not announced a ban on oil or natural gas because they are just so reliant on Russian oil and natural gas that it's going to be really painful for them to make those decisions.
Well, let's go back to the price of gas here in the U.S. because there was a recent ABC News Ipsos poll that indicates that the majority of Americans blame Putin and the oil companies for the high price of gas. So really, how big a factor is the energy embargo on Russia on the price of gas here in the U.S.?
This is certainly the administration's line, is that this is Putin's price hike. And in some senses, that is true. I mean, Russia is waging war in Ukraine. It is a blatantly aggressive state. And Russia is one of the world's largest oil and just in general, everything, commodity exports, oil, natural gas, coal. So the fact that Russian assets are toxic means that the markets are turning away from them. This is contributing to high oil prices. But really what is contributing to high oil prices is the sort of energy policies of Western states. And so far that has been, okay, we're going to move away from Russian energy. Well, that institutes a mad scramble for every last drop of non-Russian energy. Leading into this crisis, we were already in an energy crisis. So when you start to remove significant portions of the market, which are Russian commodities, the rest of the world's prices go sky high. That's just sort of the basics of supply and demand.
So Emily,
now,
I was going to say, you know, I wonder, could the turmoil in the energy markets cause geopolitical instability that the U.S. government will need to be prepared for? What do you think?
Absolutely. So already we have seen just relationships just completely upended so quickly over the last 2 months. So removing Russia as a supplier from the market of certain portions of natural gas and oil has led the U.S. to pursue other relationships. So we've seen the Biden administration make sort of open overtures towards Venezuela. Towards other places in the Middle East, right? So they're Iran. So they're trying to begin new relationships because they know that to persuade other states to move away from Russian oil, there needs to be more oil brought to the market. That's just, we're already in a tight oil market. There's not enough to go around if we remove Russian oil. So making those overtures, for example, to Iran, has then caused some other geopolitical backlash. The Saudis are actually furious with the United States for reaching out to Iran. So this has ripple effects all over the world. This is causing a food crisis, which is going to probably lead to increased instability in the Middle East. So there's a huge knock-on ripple effect from the energy crisis.
And I guess, I mean, we're out of time, but I know that your article was saying, you know, that the public is just going to have to get used to using less energy.
Absolutely. The only way to sort of lessen this price increase is to use less. There's not enough to go around. And so if we want to get off of Russian oil, remove Russian oil and gas from the market, that means that we in the West need to consume less.
All right. Well, Emily, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.